Somewhere, right now, someone is holding in a fart in a crowded elevator, silently praying nobody notices. For most of human history, that instinct would have made zero sense to your ancestors, because for a huge stretch of time, in cultures scattered across the entire planet, letting one rip wasn't embarrassing. It was protection. This is the story of how something your body does by accident became, for centuries, a genuine weapon against evil spirits. Let's start with the basic logic, because it's actually simpler than you'd think. Ancient and medieval people believed evil spirits, demons, and disease were often carried on bad air. If a smell could make you sick or make a room feel wrong, then logically, a smell could also be dangerous to the things you couldn't see. And if bad smells could hurt you, they reasoned, bad smells could also hurt them, the demons. So across wildly different cultures, with no contact with each other, people arrived at the same basic strategy: fight foul with fouler. In Europe, one of the most famous weapons in this smell war was a resin called asafoetida. It's still used in cooking today in tiny amounts, but in its raw, unrefined form, it smells so aggressively awful that people nicknamed it, quite literally, devil's dung. And here's the twist: they didn't just tolerate the smell, they weaponized it. People sewed asafoetida into little cloth pouches and wore them around their necks specifically to keep demons and sickness away. In parts of the United States, during the 1918 flu pandemic, people were still wearing these stinking little sachets, convinced the smell alone could keep the virus at bay. The logic was consistent across an ocean and several centuries. If it smells disgusting enough to make you gag, it should be strong enough to disgust something far worse than you. Now, if a rotten-smelling root could scare off a demon, your body already comes fully equipped with a much cheaper, much more renewable version of the exact same weapon. And this isn't a modern joke layered onto old folklore. There is an actual, documented account written about the 4th century Christian bishop Saint Martin of Tours, describing him driving away a demon through the act of, and there's no delicate way to say this, farting. Read that again. One of the most influential religious figures in early Christian Europe was recorded in texts from before the year 400 using flatulence as an instrument of spiritual warfare. This wasn't treated as some shameful accident to laugh off and apologize for. In the context of the story, it's framed as an act of power. The body, doing something base and undignified, becomes the thing that drives evil out of the room. Think about how differently that reframes something you were taught to be quietly ashamed of your entire life.
This idea of the body's lower functions having spiritual weight didn't stop with one bishop's biography either. There's a long thread running through medieval thought connecting a person's bowels quite directly to their spiritual state. Purging the body, in more ways than one, was tied to purging the soul. It sounds absurd from where you're sitting, but it's worth remembering that a huge amount of ancient medicine worked on exactly this principle. Whatever left the body was often seen as evidence that something bad had been successfully expelled. Vomiting expelled poison, bleeding expelled bad humors, and apparently, in certain interpretations, flatulence expelled something even less welcome than that. The belief wasn't limited to Europe either, though the specific flavor of it changes as you travel. In parts of South America, some communities developed an entirely different, almost bureaucratic relationship with flatulence.
Rather than treating it as protective, they treated an audible fart as a genuine emergency requiring social response, the belief being that part of your very soul could escape along with it, and it needed to be formally acknowledged so you could eventually get it back. Meanwhile, in ancient Rome, gas apparently had an entirely different reputation. It wasn't feared. It was linked to Fortuna, the goddess of luck, and there's a tradition suggesting that flatulence near her statue was seen as an offering that could bring good fortune your way. So, depending entirely on where you happened to be born in the ancient world, the exact same bodily function could mean you were under demonic attack, losing a piece of your soul, or accidentally making an offering to the goddess of luck. Ancient humans really could not agree on what your own gas was supposed to mean. What all of these beliefs share, underneath the specifics, is something genuinely fascinating about how the ancient mind worked.
Long before germ theory, Before anyone understood viruses or bacteria, people were operating on a consistent, logical framework. The invisible world runs on the same rules as the visible one. If something smells like decay and danger, it probably carries decay and danger with it. Fight it with something equally repulsive, and you might just win. It's not actually that different from your instinct today to recoil from a foul smell in a room. Some deep evolutionary wiring whispering that bad odors often mean bad things. Spoiled food, disease, decay. Ancient people just took that same gut instinct and built an entire cosmology on top of it. And once you understand the logic, the flatulence part almost writes itself. If the goal is producing the single most disgusting, most demon-repelling substance available at a moment's notice, nothing beats a weapon that's completely free, endlessly renewable, and built directly into your own body. No harvesting a rare root. No importing resin from a distant trade route. Just you, a full stomach, and a strategic sense of timing. There's something almost sweetly practical about it, in a deeply undignified way. While the wealthy were burning expensive imported resins to keep evil at bay, ordinary people already had a completely free, unlimited supply of their own personal demon repellent, built right in, no purchase necessary. So the next time you're holding in a fart in an elevator, mortified, praying nobody notices, consider the possibility that you have this exactly backwards. Somewhere in the deep folklore of your own species, that exact moment, an unexpected release of gas in a room full of other people, was once considered an act of protection, a small, involuntary spell cast against whatever unseen thing might be lurking nearby. You're not embarrassing yourself. Historically speaking, you might just be doing your job.
Your ancestors weaponized their own digestive tracts against literal demons, wore rotting tree resin around their necks to fight off disease, and built elaborate spiritual frameworks around a bodily function you currently spend your entire life trying to suppress in public. Maybe the real lesson here isn't about ancient superstition at all. Maybe it's about how far we've drifted from a species that used to treat every part of the human body, even the parts we now find humiliating, as something with genuine, serious power. Somewhere between Saint Martin driving out demons and you white-knuckling it through a crowded meeting room, humanity apparently decided one of its oldest weapons wasn't worth being proud of anymore. Your ancestors would be very confused by your embarrassment. As far as they were concerned, you were carrying protection with you the entire time.